So I'm going to talk mostly about the birding hotspots of Peoria County. I think most all of the photography here. Advance it for me, Dennis. Oh, there we go. Okay. I did a program several months ago about birding hotspots that you maybe had not heard about. And we had a good crowd, and we have a good crowd tonight. So this is a popular topic. So I'm glad to see you here. But I talked about this last time, is once you get to a hotspot, you know there are birds there. You know people are seeing a lot of birds, but how do you bird it? Where do you go? Where do you park? Is it safe? All these questions you may have. And, what can you see when, et cetera. And this is what I'm hoping to convey to you tonight, the answer to these types of questions. Because you know the birds are there from eBird, for instance, if you're following that. But just exactly how to do it, if you've never been there before, is always a question. I certainly have those questions the first time I show up at a hotspot. There's a black-bellied whistling duck, which they've been showing up lately, which has been really fun. This is a kind of like a Florida bird that is starting to show up in our area. Hotspots. Here is a list of the top hotspots from eBird of Peoria County. So I'm going to talk about the top 10 for the most part. I do have an honorable mention in here that I'm going to talk about. But you can get this information from eBird. This is about a month old, so there might be another one added to some of these. But I'll talk about the first 11 actually. So number 1 is Banner Marsh East. Anybody not been to Banner East? It's okay. So 226 species, which is the highest of any hotspot, eBird hotspot in Peoria County. You're pretty much going to see birds from just about every type of habitat that you could think of. There's wetland there are woods there, there's essentially lake kind of habitat, there are reeds. So you'll see lots of things. There's owls, hawks, herons, geese and ducks, warblers, shorebirds, gulls and terns, etc. Huge concentrations of blackbirds this time of year and in November. Also, if you get there at dawn, thousands, probably maybe tens of thousands of blackbirds. So it's really quite a spectacle to see that many birds, and they take off. They will come up out of the Phragmites and they're gone. But it's quite a thing to see. You'll also see huge concentrations of geese, mostly snow geese, in like February timeframe, January, February timeframe. I have found black-crowned night herons there that I believe are nesting, and that's a state endangered species. And some rarities are showing up there. Neotropic cormorant. Jen found a black-legged kittiwake a few years ago. Harris's sparrow has been there. Purple gallinule was here last year. And a Swainson's hawk I found a couple of years ago. So there can really be some great birds show up there. Here's a map, and the arrow at the top of the map is the entrance to Banner East. So it's the entrance closest to Peoria. And you can see the road that comes in, and then there's a left-hand turn that goes to a boat launch and bathrooms. And then if you continued straight, you come to a gate, and that's indicated by that straight yellow line at the bottom. So that gives you an idea how to bird this place if you're just going to drive through it. And you can see an awful lot just by driving through it and stopping and setting up a scope or looking at through your binoculars. You can see an awful lot. It really does help to have a scope because you can see birds far away. I have found the black-crowned night herons in this area. So before the left-hand turn, look to the left. That's where I've seen them. And I think the purple gallinule was past the left-hand turn on the right. I think, but I was out of town, so I missed that bird, darn it. This gives you an idea what is hunted there. There is hunting at Banner, and the crosshatched area is supposed to be wildlife refuge. So I'm not going to really talk too much about hunting other than try to be aware of what's going on as far as hunting goes, because even if it's not supposed to be hunted, I think that sometimes it might be. So just be aware that hunting is happening at some of these places. So here's a bunch of arrows at Banner East, and these are all trails. These are all areas that you can walk to. Some are long hikes, some are not well marked. Many are traveled by fishermen, Banner East, and these are all trails. These are all areas that you can walk to. Some are long hikes, some are not well marked. Many are traveled by fishermen or people putting in a kayak or some sort of fishing vessel. So there's lots of spots where you can explore to find birds. They're generally spots where hunters are going. So that's why these places exist, is mostly for hunters. They're not for birders, but guess what? They're not bad for birding too. Questions?
They have expanded the gate.
Right.
So you can look in that long lake along the river.
Yeah, so what Maury mentioned is right before the gate, another gate.
There's they put another gate in further down, so you can't get too lost. So
okay, so anyway, there's lots of hiking if you want to do hiking, and you can find some things there that you wouldn't find from your car along the road. That's the point of this slide. Okay, let's go on to Mendenhall. Mendenhall is number 2, 218 species. And this is the map for Mendenhall. Here's Route 24 in Bartonville. And there's a left-hand turn if you're headed south. And Mendenhall Park is, many of you have been there, I know, but Mendenhall Park is really Mendenhall Road. It's a popular fishing spot. But I think what I want to point out in this slide is there's really 4 different pools or ponds or wetlands, and you can see them here on the map. And they're not numbered or anything, but you'll see the first 2, and then go past a little wooded area, and you'll see the next 2. And then at the very end is a boat launch. So there's lots of boat traffic, and a lot of folks will put boats in at that spot. So these are views of, so the left picture is a decent parking area. It's the sign that says Mendenhall Park. I would recommend parking there and walking. We did that with the ornithology group that came to Peoria in, when was that? July. And walking down there, you carry a scope and you can look at all the different ponds that are there. You can also drive it and park along the side of the road, but you'll see more birds if you walk it, and that's a good spot to park. But before you get to that sign, if you look to the left and right, just really close to the road, that's what these other pictures are. So looking to the left is the middle picture, and looking to the right, looking to the right is the rightmost picture. So those are sort of wild areas. I've not hiked them, but I think you probably could. But I've heard Bell's Vireo in there and lots of different sparrows in those areas. It's not great because it's really close to the road and there's lots of noise, but there are lots of birds in those areas. And these are the second ponds. Lately, they have been the most productive ponds, but as I'm saying here, you just don't know with Mendenhall if you're gonna have a great experience there or not, because it's essentially connected to the river, and it really depends on the water level of the river and the water levels at Mendenhall to indicate what has got water, what's dried up. If it's dried up, has it all grown up to, to be grass? And how much is in the river right now? So with the right water conditions, any one of these ponds can show some great species. So you kind of have to look at them all to see what's around. But fish crow is a bird that hasn't been in the Peoria area for maybe a couple, 3 years. But starting a couple, 3 years ago, fish crow had been hanging around our area, and this is where they were first found. And this year, somebody found 22 of them. So apparently they're breeding, or it seems likely that they're breeding here. So that's a very interesting change that just happened a couple of years ago. We had cattle egret there. It's now called Western cattle egret. We've had sandhill crane there, red knot, Eurasian widgeon. It's been a number of years ago, but there will be large congregations of blackbirds there too. It's a great place to see rusty blackbird. Like I said, fish crow. I think they're gone now, but they should be back in May. A couple things to note here. It is connected to the river, as I mentioned. There is really no active management of the water level, so the river is, whatever the river does is what Mendenhall does. There is an active railroad there. The trains are not all that common, but they do run there. And occasionally I've been stuck there for 20 or 30 minutes. It does happen. So Steve's comment for the folks online was there's no light there at that crossing, but it's generally, you're going to hear them. Popular fishing spot. It's also a popular boat launch. So there is traffic that goes to and from. It is a noisy road. I thought for sure there would be screech owls there, and I tried a half a dozen or more times to find screech owls, and I could not hear them because I think mostly because of the road. It's just too busy. But I feel like they got to be there. But nobody has indicated that nobody's listed it yet. There is hunting nearby, but nobody should be hunting in the park. That doesn't mean that nobody would be, but there's hunting in the neighbor properties. There is hunting. I would highly recommend using a spotting scope there because birds can be far away, but you can be rewarded if you use a spotting scope. No restrooms. The area can be rather smelly. If the river recedes, then there could very easily be a bunch of fish that die as it dries up. So be aware, it can be very smelly certain times of the year with certain water conditions, but the birds love it. If you can put up with it, you'll probably be rewarded bird-wise. Okay, number 3, Detweiler Riverside. This is a property, a Peoria Park District property that is fairly recent. It used to be the Detweiler Golf Course, right? And 199 species have been seen there. We need somebody to find number 200. Lots of different habitats, lots of wetland along the shore. And there's now a nice new observation platform. Thank you, Maury, who's here, and Amico, who provided the funding for that. So it's a really nice thing that has happened there. And it's pretty much straight ahead. I think I can point to it. And also, while we're talking about you, Maury, you found the Harris sparrow that was there a couple of years ago. So thank you for that. That was a rarity that showed up, and there was a snowy owl that could have been seen from there a couple of years ago, right along the river. What's that?
That was your wife.
Yeah, yep. Jen found the snowy owl.
See from Detweiler. Yeah.
You could see it from Detweiler. Needed a scope, and it was small, but it was there. There was a glaucous skull there. I think Rick Fox found that. I don't know who found the Western meadowlark, but Lots of good birds there. Lots of nice hiking. And again, this is Peoria Park District property, and they've basically made it a area now. So some things to note. You'll probably find dogs off leash there. That makes me grumpy every time I see it. It can also be busy. There are events, lots of events across the road, especially this time of year. There's cross-country events. We're sometimes grumpy about how much they mow, but what's that?
Everyday mowing?
Yeah, everyday mowing. They mow an awful lot. And we've pointed it out. It still happens. But there are no restrooms there. However, when there are events, there could very well be a porta potty. I think there is one now during parking events. So here's a map of Detweiler Park and Detweiler Riverside. So Riverside, the 199 species are all on the east side of the road, 29. So I'm not talking at all about Detweiler Park. I'm talking about Detweiler Riverside.
There is a restroom at Detweiler Park right across the road.
Thank you, Steve. Yep. Appreciate that. So when you first pull into Detweiler Riverside, the parking area is straight ahead. And then there is this loop trail, and there's a couple other mode trails where you can go in between. So there's lots of great spots to walk and hike. And then there's at the very end, it's a good sized walk, but at the very end, you can make your way to the river and look for shorebirds.
Where's the viewing platform?
Yes, thank you. The viewing platform here's the parking area right here. The viewing platform is just past the 0.1. There's a little, it used to be a tee box or a green. I'm not sure which it was, but it's an elevated spot right at the end of that little, that little area here just to the right of the 0.1. So it's an easy walk from the parking lot. So here's what the parking area looks like. So just walking straight ahead past the old building, which was the old clubhouse, I think, for the Detweiler Golf Course, and you'll run into that viewing platform. And to the left is where the parking happens for big events. So you can see in this second picture on the left, they've roped it off for parking in there. So it's probably too busy for birding if there's an event going on. So I mentioned that people don't put their dogs on leash, and it is somewhat irritating because there are plenty of signs that say all pets must be on leash, but almost everybody ignores that, unfortunately. And it's a pet peeve of Jen's and mine because dogs get into ground nesting birds and also get into some of the plants that are digging up plants and things. So there is a reason why they're supposed to be on a leash. It is I do think Peoria needs more places for dogs to be on leash. Or to be, allowed to. There should be more dog parks. There aren't that many. There is a good reason for dogs to be on leash. There is a boat launch. Let me go back here a minute. Didn't mention the boat launch. As you pull in, if you turn to the left, there's the boat launch. And I'm going to show you photos of that. So this is what it looked like not too long ago. So there can be some shorebirds in here. So there hasn't been much because it's grown up quite a bit, but it's worth checking. It's worth looking at. And there is a little trail that goes out to the river. Again, this is a really good thing to do, is take your scope out there and check the river. Because if you're going to see a glaucous gull, or if you're going to see a red-throated loon or a common loon, this is probably how you're going to do it. It does flood, so it could be muddy. So you'll just need to be aware of that. And off the sort of north side of the parking area, there is a little trail here that is popular with fishing. So you could walk through there, and it's you can get out to where the fishermen are, and there's little trails through the woods. So that's another also decent spot to go check out. Okay, Banner Marsh, Maine. So we're back to Banner. 198 species. You need 2 more for 200. So as you pass Banner East, you'll see the main entrance to Banner Marsh, and it's again a left-hand turn. This is what it looks like, and the yellow arrow is the entrance. It's a very short drive into the parking area. So very short drive into the main parking area. It's listed here on this map as Johnson Lake Boat Ramp. But you can see some things just from that parking lot. There has been for several years in a row least bittern nesting just to the left of the end of the drive-in. So in late June through maybe mid-July is the time frame that you'll see them. Otherwise, they're very tough to find. You have to just be lucky to find them outside of that, or you hear them. But they're very secretive, but when they're young hatch, they'll be flying back and forth to and from the nest in that location, and you get to see them. So it's really sort of a special thing to see these least bitterns that otherwise you're probably not going to see. And it's been pretty regular for several years in a row now. You just have to just stand there and wait a half an hour, and pretty soon they're going to show. And it's been a real pleasure to see them. But you can look across from that parking lot right here, where it's indicated Johnson Lake Boat Ramp. You can look across and look and find things. I've seen shrikes across the way and mockingbirds, for instance. You can see terns flying around from that parking lot. So you just sort of never know. There is a right-hand turn just as you pull in, and there's some interesting habitat there, some cedars, etc. So you can check those out. But then it goes past these 3 sort of settling ponds that I've never seen much of anything in, and then you come to a gate. You can walk around that gate and continue on. I've done that, but I've needed my big tall boots because it's very wet and it could be impassable. But I'm going to talk a little bit about an alternative to that. And it involves the blue arrow, which is down the road. You can see it in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. It involves driving close to another mile to this entranceway that actually is in Fulton County. So I'll explain that here shortly. But first, I'll talk a little bit about the birds you might find. I did mention the least bittern. I found common gallinule there, yellow-breasted chat, terns like crazy. Just about all these terns have been seen there. I'd still like to find that least tern, but the other ones are not that hard to find. But LeConte sparrow is the one that I wanted to talk about a little bit more. So here's what that alternate entrance to Banner, Maine looks like. So again, I mentioned it's down the road a ways, and it's in Fulton County. You will pass the Fulton County sign, but you can pull into here where this arrow is pointing. It's careful of traffic because it's not an easy, it's just not a big wide road. You'll reach this little parking area that has a gate, so you cannot go past this gate. So you have to park there and walk. So you're going to be hiking, but it's on a road. It's not. You don't need to have your big boots on. It might be muddy. It looks like this. and it goes all the way to the river if you want to walk a mile. There is a left-hand turn shortly after you get to this straightaway, and this is, you start at the blue arrow, and you get to this straightaway that goes to the river, but then there's this left-hand turn that goes out into this field. So that's the alternative that I'm saying, that's Banner Main alternate. So if this is in Peoria County, the road, I believe, is also in Peoria County, but it's close to the border of Fulton County. But all of this is in Peoria County. So I think it's appropriate to put them on the Banner Main list. So this field here is full of foxtail, and Maury many years ago said, if you want to find LeConte sparrow, you got to look in the foxtail. And indeed, that was true. Just tromp through the foxtail. There's no trail necessarily here, and you'll kick up a bird that will come up and drop down and disappear. And if you're lucky, it'll pop up and stay, and then you'll have your look at probably a LeConte sparrow. So that's what it looks like on the right. So it's a orange-headed sparrow. And it's really tough to find and even tougher to photograph. So it was pretty lucky. It was a lucky day to get a view of it like this. Okay, I will also mention there is a barn owl box that is at the very end. Again, it's that mile walk. You'll see it on the right-hand side. It has had barn owls in it, and just don't approach. It's a very sensitive species. Just if you're looking at it, just look at it from the road. Again, scope is really, really helpful and useful. And it's a tough one to find and see, because they're not going to be active until it's dark. So you're going to walk a mile and then you're going to walk back in the dark. So it's not the most pleasant birding experience, because if you do get it, it's going to be in the dark. Yeah, Jana.
When I've seen that spot that you pull over, is it the one that says wetland access?
It is not the one that says
okay.
wetland access.
It always looks overgrown past the gate.
It does.
Your picture looks like, does it open up then?
No, it's
pretty overgrown.
It's just, yeah, there's lots of vegetation both sides of the road. The road does a little twist and turn, but just follow the road.
Okay.
Yeah, follow the road.
Okay, cool.
It is fairly remote. To be honest, it's pretty remote. Okay, the Princeville Irrigation Lagoons. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but it's a really good birding spot. But it's owned by Seneca Foods. So it's a corporate-owned, essentially, wetland. It is posted for no trespassing. There are a few people that have access to it because they know the guy that runs the place, who has come to Audubon meetings before. So that is a good reason for you all to come to Audubon meetings before. If he comes, we're going to talk to him and see if he can allow access. But the surrounding, it is adjacent to the Rock Island Trail. So walking the Rock Island Trail is still a good idea. And it's, of course, that's open to all. And you can see lots of good birds in that area. And in northwestern Peoria County in general, it's very different in that part of the county than it is elsewhere. So you're gonna find good birds in that area, in the Princeville area, such as upland sandpiper, loggerhead shrike. There was even a scissortail flycatcher that was seen there a number of years ago in that area. Dustin, I think, was the guy who found that. So the surrounding area is very good for birding. Yellow-headed blackbird, I'm still envious of that yellow-headed blackbird that you saw, Jamie. But you can see orchard oriole in that area. And shorebirds do use the fields, especially if the fields are wet. So you can still see good birds in that area. Number 6 is Jubilee State Park, 181 species. There's lots of hiking, and that's a huge understatement. There's more hiking than you can get. Well, you can get lost there, but great hikes and lots of birds. There is hunting there, and I think the signage will tell you a little bit, but if there's hunting, I'm probably just going to stick to the roads myself. Some of the sightings that you are likely to find there: western kingbird, worm-eating warbler, hooded warbler, Mississippi kites were seen there a few years ago. You can read Connecticut warbler, whippoorwill, prairie warbler, some really good birds there, but it's big. And where are you going to actually go to find them? It's a challenge, but you can spend a lot of time there, and you'll be rewarded. But it's big. There's good signage. There are also neighboring hotspots that are separate. So I've marked them by the blue stars. So the northern areas and $1,000 Road are hotspots separate from Jubilee. So it's really great habitat also by car. So that's often what I will do is just drive the roads by car and then listen. And if I see things, stop the car, get out, walk, just park on the side of the road. I found hooded warbler that way. Jen and I had black-billed cuckoo that way. Lots of things you can find by car. You can cover a lot more territory that way. Generally, if there's no camping going on, that's like early May, really good time to do that. But you get an idea what the habitat looks like with these photos by car. You don't necessarily have to hike all of the trails, but that's available too. And I also like to walk to and from these picnic areas. So there's a couple of them: Valley View and Turkey Hollow. Just walking the roads to those areas is worth it, or walking up and down them. It gives you the edges, the edges where a lot of birds like to hang out. So there are some wet areas. If you go all the way through the park, you'll see this little creek. It's kind of in a low area, likely to find water thrushes in there as well. So that's worth it. Anywhere there's water, worth doing. Oh, I want to go back. What is it? There it is, Boxwood Glen. That's one of my favorite hikes. It's a loop. There was hooded warbler there, not in the last couple of years, but previous to that. This is it's a nice, about a mile hike. That's it can be a little muddy, but otherwise it's really good. But find your favorite hike. You've got dozens to choose from here. So, okay, Tawny Oaks and Singing Woods. I put them together because basically you park at the same spot for both places. So Tawny Oaks has 181 species, Singing Woods 171, both park district. So another plug for the park district, some really great properties. I think there's probably some crossover in the lists. So Tawny Oaks is mostly prairie and Singing Woods is deep woods. So, you might see a deep woods species on the Tawny Oaks list and vice versa. So there might be some crossover, but both of them are really, really great spots. It is a nature preserve, so there are no dogs allowed. And I don't see them there. So are there? Oh, okay. Not in the woods. Thank you, Jen. So for the folks online, you might find dogs in the Prairie Loop at Tawny, but they're not allowed in the nature preserve Singing Woods. So this is what the entrance looks like. The entrance has recently been redone, so it's a little bit more visible to folks going down Singing Woods Road. And we will have our March meeting again there in 2025, looking for woodcock. This is a nice picture of a woodcock in the daytime, which we were lucky to get on a field trip in March or April, but that wasn't at Tawny. Okay, and the idea of this field trip is to see the mating display of woodcock, which is really, really fun to watch and listen to. So at Tawny, the prairie is primary, and Lisa saw the swallowtail kite. I'm envious of that one. That's a great species. Anybody else see that? You had it. Oh, all right. But that's a Peoria County first, and it showed at Tawny Oaks over the prairie. It's been burned since then, so I don't know. I hope it comes back. I checked a couple times this year. There was Harris's sparrow there. I think, Bert, you found that, didn't you? Yeah, good job. LeConte's has been there, clay-colored sparrow, lark sparrow, fox sparrow, Lincoln sparrow. Just about all the sparrows have shown there. And if you're into butterflies, it's a really great spot for butterflies. There are purple martin houses there, and they're loaded with purple martins. You should find red-headed woodpeckers there. Both tanagers should be probably both orioles that you would expect to have. So really great to walk around. And it's what, half a mile, if that, walking around that prairie at Tawny. Yeah, Steve.
Are the swifts coming to the chimney there?
There's the chimney on the left. Swifts, last I knew, there was a pair that was nesting there. So it's a nesting chimney, basically.
Not a migration. It's not a migration.
It's not for migrating. Yeah, it's for nesting chimney swifts. You may see in the fall, you may see more than a pair go in there. But not that many. Yeah.
We've had good luck walking on through the prairie and then to the woods. We're at the far end from the parking lot, that line of woods with warblers all along there and other interesting birds, especially in the spring.
So close to there's a home back there. Is that where you're talking about?
I don't know. It's if you follow the prairie path away from the parking lot, it takes you it goes to the edge of the woods, goes along the woods for a while.
Close to the road?
Yeah, before you get to the road.
Yeah,
the woods there, yeah.
Yeah.
Platform is with the bench.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of stuff right in that edge.
Yeah.
Yes.
About halfway around, there's a big viewing platform with a bench, presumably for birding, and you just turn around and look towards the woods behind you. There's some great birds right there.
Right. Okay, so if you didn't hear that online, there is a platform on the back side of the Prairie Loop, and that's a really good spot to just spend some time and look at the woods. Yeah, you'll see there's big oak trees there. There's dogwoods there and lots of birds. And then I think what you were saying is continuing on, and as you're getting closer to the road, that corner is really good for songbirds. Yeah, really. Yeah, it's excellent. That whole area is excellent for birds for sure. There is a visitor center. The hours are, I don't know what the hours are, but it closed August 17. There are restrooms there if it's open, but anyway, it closed in the middle of August, and they'll be back open again in May. I just wanted to mention the Peoria Park District Community Survey, and there is the web address for that. They are seeking input. And, if you're like me, you'll tell them what you like and what you don't like. And I told them about dogs. I don't like the fact that they don't patrol that and that people ignore that all the time. But if you have things that you like or don't like about the park district, I would encourage you to go ahead and fill out that survey. Okay, so here's an overview on the left of Tawny Oaks. And there's the platform over here on the far left middle. And then all along that forest edge is good birding, what we were just talking about. But I would also say along this edge too, same thing. You'll see lots of good things. So, yes.
Did a big sit on, couple of times we did a big sit on that platform back there.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, you'll be rewarded with just hanging out on that platform. Yeah, Fox.
And since I'm moving from Bishop Hill to Peoria Heights, I've already had a conversation with Susie Ingram about the possibility of moving my Hummingbird Festival to Tawny Oaks next August. If anybody wants to help and participate, Peoria Hummingbird Festival, August 25.
Wonderful. Good. Thank you. Okay. And in this left picture, I have two yellow bars. And so these are the entrances into Singing Woods. So there's basically two ways to get in there. And you will see the overhead sign like it's pictured on the right-hand side when you enter the Singing Woods. So I generally do or try to do a checklist for each location. When I enter Singing Woods, I start a new one. If you're eBirding. So there are maps. It's really well done that there are maps along the trails. So it's easy to figure out where you are and not get lost. So the Park District has done a great job with these maps, and I've sort of redrawn these maps here. So also these maps tell you how far you're going, so you can have a pretty good idea. If you've had enough, where to turn around and go back. But the hiking is challenging. It's significant elevation changes, so you're gonna feel it in your legs, and you're gonna be breathing hard no matter what you do. If you do any one of these loops, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. It's good exercise, but they're challenging hikes. Let's see. Also, if you do all the way around the green to the yellow and back, it's about 4 miles. So it's a significant hike, but it's fantastic. And it goes almost all the way to Ivy Lakes Road. So you can sort of see that it basically goes to Ivy Lakes Road from Singing Woods Road. So it's a really amazing deep woods experience if you do the entire loop. What are you going to see in Singing Woods? Just about every eastern warbler that is in the book. You're probably not going to get Kirtland's. You're probably not going to get Swainson's warbler, but you have a chance if you're there long enough to get just about every other eastern warbler in time. There are nesting Kentucky warblers there. I think I've had as many as 4 or 5. We had black-billed cuckoo on a hike couple Mays ago, I think. Pretty easy to get both water thrushes in migration. Just about all the eastern thrushes in migration, except for bicknells, which would be quite the rarity. Flycatchers. I think this is a barred owl picture I took there, so you're likely to find them. So that was really, I heartily recommend those 2 areas if you've never been. So Chillicothe Bottoms, 175 species. It's now owned by Illinois Audubon. Yeah. uh, I got pictures of it. So yeah, really appreciate that too. This was Peoria Audubon was approached, and we just didn't have the funding to be able to acquire it. So we are really appreciative of Illinois Audubon's involvement in acquiring that property and keeping it in conservation. So we are still fundraising so that we can purchase a property at some point, but we just didn't have the funding for it when that became available. Chillicothe Bottoms is adjacent to Moffett Park. I know many of you have been there. There's a neighboring rail line, BNSF rail line that's close by. To get there, you enter off of Moffett Road in Chillicothe. And let's see here. You're likely to get ducks and geese. It's a great wetland. It's really sort of a floodplain from the river. Lots of herons. There are shorebirds if the water levels are right. You're going to get all 7 woodpecker species.
Every time I've been.
Yep, great woodpecker place. It is going to get lots of flycatchers, lots of warblers in migration. Sandhill crane. I think sandhill crane are nesting just east of there in kind of the backwater areas. So you're likely to hear them from there. There are no restrooms, and I'm going to talk a little bit and show you how to hike in from some of these photos. So as Fox Ellis mentioned, you drive in from Moffett Road. There used to be signs that basically said, essentially keep out, because it was the casting club's property, but they've now moved them thanks to Illinois Audubon.
Club's property.
It was not.
It was not the Casting Club's property. They just put their sign too far out.
Yeah.
And so we had a gentle negotiation. They moved their sign back. We put our signs in, and that's where you park, by those concrete blocks.
Yep, exactly. Thank you. And that's exactly why I took this picture, because that's where you park, and that's where you walk in. At least that's where I would recommend walking in. So some of those signs that say, hey, Casting Club property, are now on down the road. So if you park at these big concrete blocks, you're basically not even going to see them. So it's much more inviting than it used to be. So thank you for that. So these are the signs. They're way down the road. So past the parking area to the right is Casting Club. It will say members only. So now if you do see that, you have gone too far. Turn around. And there is no trespassing unless you're a member at the Casting Club. So these are the borders of it, and I found this helpful just to understand who owns what. So I lined this up, these 2 parcels. The left-hand parcel is Moffett Park. The right-hand parcels are Chili Bottoms. So I lined this up with the railroad. So so the railroad is up on the top, and they're lined up. But Moffett Road is coming in here at the bottom on the left, and the parking area is that blue P. Okay, that's the parking area we just showed you. So really, if you follow this red dotted line, I hope you can see it, that is essentially how you get to Chili Bottoms. And you're walking through Moffett Park to do it. Okay, so you're just so you're aware of that. It's really Moffett Park that you're walking through to get to Chili Bottoms. But I think most of us start a Chili Bottoms eBird list right at the parking area, and that's probably just fine. So the right-hand photo is, there's the building. and those of you online can probably not see it, but that's the building that corresponds to that building here. So if you're at that building, here's all of Chili Bottoms, mostly wetland. It goes all the way out to the river. And then walking along this trail along the railroad there are some spots where you can really look into the wetlands and see things. Maury.
Trail that's been put in. There's another trail that's been put in into the wetland to a blind. And that was cleared by the park district there. And you can, if it's dry, you can get in there. And
Okay.
the bench has been fixed now, so you can sit there.
All right. I know you can't see this online because you can't see my pointer, but is this roughly where it is, Maury? Okay. Okay. So it's essentially south of the building, and but water levels can be tricky, can be really muddy depending on the water levels. So just be aware of that. Anything else you want to say about Chili Bottoms?
Well, the list is up to 179 now with
okay.
other people's help.
Good. Good.
Keeps growing.
The casting club is down here, right here, on the rightmost picture, but it is in the lower left of the rightmost picture. I think you can maybe see it. Wait a second. It's here. Yeah. This is it right here. So that's their parking area. Looking on the left-hand picture past the parking area of Chili Bottoms. All right. And Wildlife Prairie Park. Dennis, I'm going to probably just look at you here for Dennis spends a lot more time at Wildlife Prairie Park. 173 species at Wildlife Prairie Park. Here's Dennis's picture. So I'll let you go ahead and talk about this and any of your other photos.
Well, this, of course, is a northern saw-whet owl, and some of these other photos are ones I took at the Wildlife Prairie Park itself. But I'd like to mention the fact that Wildlife Prairie Park is a fee location because they could not achieve funding because they were briefly a state park, but the state park called all funding. And so the Wildlife Prairie Park in the last couple of years has made a substantial improvement in order to make themselves financially sustainable. Since I only live about 1.5 miles from it, I volunteer there to monitor all of the bluebird houses that they have. But if you're interested in seeing some of the birding, there are a number of hiking trails which are fairly good. Okay. The one main trail that's easiest to get to is called the Floodplain Trail. And if you can, there's a statue of Sacagawea. Some people say Sacagawea, but from what I understand, I think it's called Sacagawea. That you can park your car near that statue and you have about a 0.3 of a mile walk to where the Deep Lake is. The Deep Lake is one of their larger lakes, and they now have tried renting kayaks as another means of increasing the revenue coming to the park. But there are a number of water birds you can actually see from that location. And this is a view of the Deep Lake from the Floodplain Trail, where the Floodplain Trail crosses The pictures are kind of mixed up a little bit.
If you go back, next one. I'll go forward.
Okay.
There we go. That's where the saw-whet was.
In this particular trail, which is called the Broken Arrow Trail, which is a small spur off of what the Floodplain Trail is, the walk that you can take will go past a large number of evergreen trees, in particular cedars. And so in the winter, some of the cedar trees and the evergreens are a reasonable habitat for some of the owls. And so that was where I took the picture of the northern saw-whet owl. But the Floodplain Trail itself will take you if you want to spend about 3 to 4 hours and pack some water with you, you can do a walk around the entire park now with their floodplain trail. And they have a large number of other birds that we normally ascribe to the wooded conditions. In fact, in the last few years, I've actually heard a large number of, well, maybe not a large number, but on a frequent occasion, you'd had white-eyed vireos and many of the other species you might describe or see in a wooded location for wooded habitat. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Pete.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yep, definitely some really good hiking there. I definitely recommend the floodplain trail. Okay,
Do you have to pay to get in there to hike that stuff?
Yes, you have a fee to enter the Wildlife Prairie Park. And
membership.
you can also purchase call it a season ticket if you want to call it that, and become a member. But if you just go there for one time just to see what's there, I think the fee is about $8 or $9.
Yep. And the hours are not
The hours start
Not the
at
best.
9 a.m.
Yeah. So-
In recent years, in the last 2 years, in fact, the Wildlife Prairie Park has actually built and constructed a number of cabins for people to lodge overnight. They have railroad cabooses you can lodge in overnight. They have converted a couple of grain bins where people can lodge in, and there's even a couple of other cabins. And what they've done is order to increase the revenue stream. Otherwise, the park would not be sustainable long term. So they had to do this without state funding.
Yeah, so in migration, starting at 9 o'clock is a little too late. Need to be earlier. So winter viewing is sometimes the best. So 9 o'clock works in the winter. I wanted to just go ahead, Dennis.
One other thing I suppose I should mention is that the Wildlife Prairie Park, the premise of the park is to have a location where people can see native animals that would inhabit Illinois or what the area is. But in order to increase it, they did this on a historical purpose or premise so that you also have buffalo and elk and even mountain lion and black bear in some of their animal exhibits. So most people don't go birding around the animal trails, but I have on a couple occasions. So you look at the animals while I have my binoculars with me and monitor and keep a checklist of some of the other birds that are there. Anyway, that's the Wildlife Prairie Park.
Okay. I just wanted to mention, honorable mention is, oops, I'm going the wrong way, is Camp Wakanda. It's a really good birding spot in migration, especially there's a creek that goes through it, but that's the only water. So that's, I think, why the species count is not, as big as some of the others, but it's really, really great for migrating songbirds. You can do a short hike or a really long hike. It can go all the way to Brook Forest Drive. It also connects to Robinson Park, which is off of Mossville Road. So you can do an awful long hike if you want, but you don't have to. You're going to find, again, almost every expected warbler in migration. I've had really good views of olive-sided flycatcher in migration. This is a picture I got just this past May of a Canada warbler. So it's a really, really nice spot. There are heated bathrooms there, which is an unusual thing in the area for birders. But this gives you an idea how far the trails go. We'll find dogs there on the trails. That is it. Questions? Did I miss anything? Anybody have a comment, a place that they bird in any of those spots that is special? Comments or questions?
One person indicated that there's more water at Camp Wakanda, and there's a lake there as well.
Oh, that's true. Very, very true. Thank you. The lake is visible on the drive-in. It's kind of up on the top of a hill as you're driving in. There's a lot more hiking there too on that side. that I've yet to explore. So maybe some of you have done that. But yeah, there is a lake there. I've seen.
One of the persons
Manures.
online said this is the first place where they saw their first green heron.
Oh, excellent. Good. Yeah, Jen.
Could you talk about what's coming, which is the duck migration, and which of these spots are the best places to go to see the wide variety of different ducks that you can see in our area?
All right. So waterfowl migration is just beginning. It should really peak here shortly. And you're going to start seeing hunters out on the Illinois River and the backwaters. So hunting will ramp up at the end of this month and in November and December. Really, I would go to look for waterfowl in Peoria County. I would go to Nellie Jackson Park. I would go along the river in Chillicothe, Front Street. There's a Rome boat launch if you are familiar with that area. I would go to Poplar Park. I would go to if I'm staying in Peoria County, I would also go to the Riverplex. I would use a scope. Riverplex in the morning, you're going to look straight into the sun. So noontime or later on that side of the river. But if you want to go on the other side of the river, first thing in the morning is fine. So Eastport Marina, for instance, is where I would go first thing in the morning. Mendenhall is, yeah, it can be really good, definitely. Mendenhall Road, no hunting there. That's a good one. Thank you, Detweiler, for ducks. Scope is really helpful this time of year for finding ducks. Those are just the Peoria County. You're going to find them along the river in other counties too. All right. Well, thank you all for coming, and hope to see you in December for Steve's Ecuador photos.
Well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and my apologies to the people on Zoom who are unable to get our camera working correctly. So we thank you all for coming out.